So very briefly, what is ShipIndex.org? What does it do? And I should give you a little bit of background about myself because that has a lot to do with it as well. During the day, I'm a librarian at an Ivy League university. That's where I spend a lot of my time. But right after I finished library school, I did a master's in maritime history at East Carolina University in Greenville, North Carolina. And I wanted to find ways of making it easier to do research on ships. My combination of the maritime interest and the research interest is what has led me to build this little company. And I know that a lot of people use shipindex.org for genealogy research, and that's fantastic. It does have, to me, it has a lot of other ways that it can be used as well, certainly for historians and for folks who are doing research on, I don't know, vessels that may be found in their, in the area where they live, or we had some folks in Washington state who were, they think basically nautical archaeologists and historians working for the Washington State ferries, and they discover anchors. They're trying to figure out what vessels the anchors might have come from. And if they have a list of a couple of vessels, then they can do research on those vessels and then figure out if that might be the vessels that they're interested in or not. So shipindex.org, basically in a nutshell, it tells you what books or magazines or websites or databases or other resources mention the vessels that you're interested in learning more about. Originally, I called it a guide to books and ships, but it's gone beyond books because it's got a lot of websites and it's got a lot of magazines or journal content as well. The database covers any named vessel that is in a resource in English. So if you have a book about Soviet era warships that has an index, that I want to add that, that I have worked to add that content into my database. I always used to say that it went from the Salaminia, the Athenian ship of state during the age of Socrates, to the Costa Concordia and anything in between. And I guess now I should update my most recent well-known disaster ship from Costa Concordia to Dali. But it really does cover any ship that is in a resource that I have found. I say any vessel in a resource in English, but there are actually a couple of resources in Dutch as well, but we won't tell anybody about that. They're pretty easy to identify and transfer and translate. So that's what the database does. It tells you which books or whatever resources mention the vessels you want to know more about. So you do need to know the name of the ship when you're starting your research. But there's a bunch more to it from that. And, that's not always the case. Mostly the case, as with most things. That's mostly true, but not completely true. There are really two ways of using this database. There's a free database and there's a subscription database. I mentioned that I have a master's in library science and a master's in maritime history, and I started this while I was working at the University of Washington back in 2000 to 2002, and I created a free database that had about 160,000 citations in it. And then my brothers and I started a company in the library industry, and we went down there for a while, and it was a while later before I shifted back to this project, because this is what really excites me. I want to make maritime history research easier to do, and this is what I think is a big way of making that work. So my brother and I turned this into an actual business. Now, of course, the shipindex.com had been taken by then, because I never really thought about taking making it a business. So it has always remained shipindex.org. But in any case, anything that's been added since we turned it into a company a number of years ago, almost anything, not completely anything, but almost anything has gone into the subscription database. So as you can see on the homepage, we put as much information as we can out there. We want to make sure you know what the database can do for you, and you get a real sense of it before you subscribe. There's over 150,000 citations in the free database, and there's over there's currently 3.64 million citations from almost 1,200 different resources in the subscription database. So there's not a lot of difference between the two. It's just a lot more content in the subscription database. A lot of classic resources like Fairbairn's Merchant Sales, Starbucks, History of the American Whale Fishery, and a bunch of other resources. The ones that I found first, those are in the database for free, as are subject entries from WorldCat, which I can talk a little bit more about if we'd like to in a little bit. But anything beyond that, all the other titles I've added through the years and many different online resources are all in the subscription database.